Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto, Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. As usual, that's my regular intro. Welcome aboard. Patrick Magner is in the house from Houston, Texas. We also have E2247 from everywhere is in the house. Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia is in the house. Bruce Pollard is in the house. Bruce, are you back in town or are you still out there in the Midwest? North Midwest, that is. Michael Rudnin from Brooklyn, New York is in the house. We also have, did I miss anybody up front? Okay, Joe is in the house from LA, California. I hope all's doing good and you're keeping yourself dry away from those landslides, los deslices de la tierra. All right, okay. Let's get started. Michael Rudnin says, Egberto, you need to have Greg Palast on again to discuss voter suppression. This demands an investigation. Greg Palast, Trump lost, vote suppression won. Here are the numbers. If not for mass purge of voters of color, if not for the mass disqualification of provisional and mail-in ballots, if not for the new mass vigilante challenges in swing states, Harris would have gained at least another 3.565 million votes, topping Trump's official popular vote tally by 1.2 million votes. Trump lost. That is, if all legal voters were allowed to vote, if all legal ballots were counted, Trump would have lost the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Vice President Kamala Harris would have won the presidency with 286 electoral votes. Here are key numbers. 4,776,706 voters were wrongly purged from voter rolls, according to U.S. Election Assistance Commission data. By August 2024, for the first time since 1946, self-proclaimed vigilante voter fraud hunters challenged and signed the rights of 317,000 voters. The NAACP of Georgia estimates that by election day, the challenges exceeded 200,000 in Georgia alone. No fewer than 2,121,000 mail-in ballots were disqualified for minor clerical errors. At least 585,000 ballots cast in precincts were also disqualified. 1,216,000 provisional ballots were rejected, not counted. 3.24 million new registrations were rejected or not entered in the rolls in time to vote. I am going to get him on to talk about it. I got an email from him. I hadn't opened it yet, so I'll go ahead and do that, and we'll do just that. Michael Rudnin, we'll bring him back on to discuss this. Anyway, how are my peeps doing today? We have quite a few videos, 2 of them from this morning that I want to play. I cleaned them up so that we could shorten it for the show today. And what I'm going to do is, as soon as I get through all the messages, let's see. Joe says, let's see, Solido. Hi, Solido. And likewise, we have Joe says in LA, we're used to surfing, but this doesn't make global catastrophe easier, but we will survive. You guys are great. I know you will survive. We also have Mol Carver got money. No, I think that's a spam thing right there. Greg Palast, please come on again to talk about your voter suppression news. This requires an investigation by Democrats. Okay, great. Oh, I see. Sold car for gas money. Okay. So that is a movie for, I think I watched that movie already, if I recall correctly. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Bridge MCP says, Egberto, I posted Greg Palast's post last week. Unbelievable. He hooked up with Tom Hartman on it. Okay. I saw the movie. I think you're talking about something that occurred after the movie, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong, because I watched his entire movie and I gave him an interview here on the movie as well. Okay. All right. If nobody has anything else to say or nobody's going to call in, I'm going to go for our first video, which is approximately, oh, wow, I don't even have them queued up. What's wrong with me? Bear with me, guys, as I queue these movies up. Let's see where we're going to start. I tell you what, let's start this way. I want to start with what they're doing in the House, okay? Or rather, in the Senate. Let's be clear here. Donald Trump constantly said he's not against Medicare. He's not trying to get rid of Medicare or Medicaid, etc. But a senator today let it out of the bag. And it was, I think, Senator Cassidy. He told the inconvenient truth about the intent of how Donald Trump is intended to rip off the poor and the middle class to pay for the tax cut for the wealthy. You're going to see it in the questions that we got to Kennedy, to Robert Kennedy Jr. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side. This is actually very, very important. Check this out. One of the things I wanted to talk about is an article that I read, Fareed Zakaria's message after working class voters ditched the Democrats, good riddance. I consider that one of... Actually, that is the wrong one. I must get to the right one, which is this. Sorry about that, guys. Every now and then I screw up on these things. This is a video that you got to see. So let me bring in it again. Donald Trump has said that he had no intentions of damaging Medicare and no intention of damaging Medicaid, cutting it or doing anything to harm people. But when you take a look at what they're about to do, when you take a look at the questions that Senator Cassidy gave to Robert Kennedy, it is clear that they're about to do two things: majorly cut Medicaid, and secondly, enhance Medicare to try to push everybody to private insurance, when we know that Medicare Advantage is a disaster. Folks, I want you guys to be aware of this and start today calling your senators and letting them know you don't want no transition to Medicare Advantage. In fact, you want Medicare Advantage dead. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Republicans are exploring reforms to Medicaid that could help pay for Trump administration priorities. With this context, what will you do about dual eligibles? About dual eligibles?
Well, dual eligibles are not right now served very well under the system. Those are people who are eligible for both Medicaid and Medicare. I suppose my answer to that is to make sure that the programs are consolidated, that they're integrated, and the care is integrated. I look forward to working with you, Dr. Cassidy, on making sure that we take good care of people who are dual eligible.
And how do you propose that we integrate those programs? Does Medicare pay more, Medicare pay less, Medicaid pay more, Medicaid pay less? How do we do that?
Well, I'm not exactly sure because I'm not in there. I mean, it is difficult to integrate them because Medicare is under fee-for-service. It's paid for by employer taxes. Medicaid is fully paid for by the federal government, and it's not fee-for-service. So I do not know the answer to that. I look forward to exploring options with you.
Republicans, again, are looking at ways to potentially reform Medicaid to help, pay for President Trump's priorities, but to improve outcomes. What thoughts do you have regarding Medicaid reform?
Well, Medicaid is not working for Americans, and it's specifically not working for the target population. Most Americans, like myself, I'm on Medicare Advantage. I'm very happy with it. Most people who are on Medicaid are not happy. The premiums are too high. The deductibles are too high. The networks are narrow. The best doctors will not accept it in the best hospitals. And particularly, Medicaid was originally designed for a target population of the poorest Americans. It's now been dramatically expanded, And the irony of the expansion is that the poorest Americans are now being robbed. Their services have dramatically decreased, even though we've increased the price of Medicare by 60% over the last 4 years. The target population is being robbed.
With that said,
out other options.
Obviously, you've thought about that, and I appreciate that. What reforms do you recommend, again, that would improve services, I suppose, but also make it more cost efficient?
Well, President Trump has given me the charge of improving quality of care and lowering the price of care for all Americans. There are many things that we can do. What we want to, the ultimate outcome, I think, is to increase transparency, to increase accountability, and to transition to a value-based system rather than a fee-based system.
So
rather than a service-based system.
On Medicaid in particular, can you just kind of take those kind of general principles and apply it to the Medicaid program?
Listen, I think that there are many options with telemedicine, with AI right now. And, there's including direct primary care systems. We're seeing that movement grow across the country. There's one of the largest providers. So going back to Medicaid though, and speaking of these specific advances, what reforms are you proposing with these ideas vis-a-vis Medicaid? Well, I don't have a broad proposal for dismantling the program.
Of course not saying that.
I think what we need to do is we need to experiment with pilot programs in each state. We need to keep our eye on the ultimate goal, which is value-based care, which is transparency, accountability, access.
And one more thing, going back to Medicare, you mentioned you're an MA. You mentioned earlier the Medicare fee-for-service. Do you have any kind of thoughts as to whether or not patients on fee-for-service should move into MA, or how should we handle that?
Whether patients
who are on Medicare fee-for-service.
Traditional Medicare?
Yes.
Well, that's their choice right now. We have, I think, 32 million Americans, or 30 million Americans on Medicare, on traditional Medicare, and then another 34 on Medicare Advantage, roughly half and half. And I think more people would rather be on Medicare Advantage because it offers very good services, but people can't afford it. It's much more expensive. In answer to your first question, there are all kinds of exciting things that we can be doing, including cooperatives, which President Trump has supported, including health savings accounts, which President Trump has supported. But all of these things to make people more accountable for their own health.
And so we'd bring the cooperatives and the health savings accounts into Medicare and Medicaid?
Exactly. We try to increase those, the use of those, and to direct primary care, to continue to transition into a value-based program that is private. Americans don't, by and large, do not like the Affordable Care Act. People are on it. They don't like Medicaid. They like Medicare. And they like private insurance. We need to listen to what they would prefer to be on private insurance. Most Americans, if they can afford to be, will be on private insurance.
Think about what he just said. Most Americans want to be on private insurance. That's false. Most Americans hate private insurance. If you explain to them what Medicare for All would do for them, pretty much what a traditional Medicare with pretty jacked up Medicare would do for them, that's what they love. They love their Medicare. When they get the pains of having to go through the insurance companies and go through all these hoops to get service, they hate it. But, Republicans and their sycophants have a way of just saying stuff, and by saying stuff, kind of willing it onto people. And people have a tendency to go back and say, I guess most Americans want it, so we coalesce. No, what this proves is that, notice what Cassidy was doing there. He was trying to enhance Medicaid and try to say that, what are you going to do to Medicaid? Because Donald Trump has other priorities, and to fulfill Donald Trump's priorities, how are you going to steal the money from Medicaid? Because that's about the biggest chunk that we could get stuff from. He didn't use those words, of course, but that's how he started the questionnaire. But secondly, when he starts to talk about Medicare Advantage, notice that Kennedy is like, oh, yeah, I'm on Medicare Advantage. Of course, you're probably on a primo Medicare Advantage. In fact, you are on Medicare Advantage because you're over 65, and private insurance for over 65 is Medicare Advantage if you want private insurance, right? The government is bailing even the rich people out. So let's be clear here, folks. Let's be very, very clear. The attempt here is to gut Medicare and gut Medicaid. That is the intent of how Donald Trump intends on paying for his tax cut. And here's the kicker. Remember, they are doing this via what the process called reconciliation. I need to explain this to everybody. Reconciliation means that they don't need a 60 vote majority in the Senate. They don't need to get to cloture. They cannot be filibustered. So all they need, they can lose 2 Republican senators or 3 Republican senators and still pass a complete bill that guts Medicare and guts Medicaid. So you have a lot of work to do right now. You have to call Mitch McConnell. You got to call there are about 5 Republicans that are up for election in the next 2 years. You have got to ensure that those guys know that their history if they vote for this. But the other thing you've got to do is you have got to get to all those people in rural areas and let them understand that the rural clinics, a lot of the rural hospitals are being gutted. But those rural clinics, those rural doctors, the only reason you have them is because of Medicaid. A large percentage of people in rural areas are on Medicaid. I repeat, a large percentage of Americans, mostly in red states again, mostly Republicans, they are very dependent on Medicaid. So when you hear they're trying to balance the budget, not balance the budget, can't do that. When they're trying to move around dollars and use, notice the key words that Kennedy is using: value base, in savings accounts. Your savings account could never cover something catastrophic. Think about all the keywords that they're using there. Savings account, value base. Most Americans want private insurance. Again, if they throw everything to the private sector, the government washes its hands off of it, and the private sector does what it does best to you: screws you. Again, they're coming after your Medicare and your Medicaid. And Cassidy and Kennedy just told you that. Cassidy and Kennedy just told you that. Wake up. Be woke. Wake up. But Joe, when you talk to you so that you don't get into a funk, let me tell you, we don't have time, my dear sisters and brothers. We don't have time to get into a funk. We have a lot of work to do right now. Okay, let me go ahead and read some of your commentary real quickly. Let me start with Paul Fleming, who says, for those who think Trump's effort to dismantle the U.S. government came out of nowhere, here is Rachel Maddow outlining last night's a block thesis on October 1, 2024, ahead of the election. Yep, Yep. That is, I think that's the part where she was talking about Project 2025. We also have Lee Beercat says Robert Kennedy Jr. is pretty jacked and pumped up, meaning healthy. So if more were as healthy, might not we have not have the health issues in America. Actually, that's true. But again, look at all the things that we would have to do to make America healthier. We are the ones who decide to come up with cheap corn, to make cheap corn syrup, to make all these other, to remove, as we remove fat, fill it up with sugar. We did a number on the American people with our food supply. So we have Americans jacked up on that sugar, high fructose corn syrup. We have America jacked up on carbs. We have America jacked up on products that have a whole lot of antibiotics in it, which makes them disease resistant. I mean, it's amazing what we have done. So you're correct, Lee Beercat. If everybody was eating healthy, doing exercises, etc., it would be great. But unlike Japan, we don't have classes that we teach people how to eat right and do things right. Just like we don't teach civics, we don't teach good health, a good health way of being. Okay, all right. Bridge MCP says RFK fully vaxxed, kids all vaxxed, exposed for earning millions for conspiracy theories. Exactly. And yeah, he was vaxxed up, and as people were vaxxed up, people that do things like that should be charged with involuntary manslaughter. Michael Radnin says most Americans hate private insurance. Egberto beat me to it. Exactly right, my dear Radnin. Let's see what else we got here. I'm scrolling. If I miss something on top, just put it back in the bottom again. Just put it in the feed again. Let's see. Lee the Bearcat says, so it's okay to eat Big Mac and Diet Cokes and have bad health and expect taxpayers to bail out all. So is it okay for me to pay for the roads that you're going to drive in Timbuktu, Mr. Lee the Bearcat? Come on now. If we want to talk about allocating our tax dollars, is it fair for me to pay for Elon Musk to be a billionaire by sending those satellites out and electric cars and all of that? I don't get any benefit out of that. That's not how taxes work. That's a silly statement, my dear brother Lee the Beercat. Mike Cisak says Egberto is making stuff up again. Well, that's a lie, but who can tell you otherwise? But he says, so RFK, an addict for 14 years, uses the system to get off and now thinks it's wrong if someone smokes and needs help. Seriously? You got it right. That's how these people are. That's how they think. Tom C says, hey, Eric, this is what a word salad really sounds like. RFK Jr. keeps mixing up Medicare and Medicaid, pushing scam Medicare Advantage over traditional Medicare. Americans like private insurance? No, they don't. Exactly right. Tom Zarnick nails it on the head. All right, JD on DEI. I'll take a look at that later. What else have we got here? Scrolling down, Trump administration removes online database of January 6 cases. He is trying to erase history. Again, you know what? It's history when it's his story, right? Let's see. Continue. New York Times article. Let's see. Politics and measles RFK. Yeah, we heard that story as well. All right. Let's see. Have shut up. Let's see what else. 10 people have seen their health insurance premiums have shot up 200% with huge increases in their deductible. That's true. Has nothing to do with Obamacare. It has everything to do with the private sector. But again, you guys continue to allow yourself to be snowed. Michael Rana says a public option could strengthen incentives for private insurers to compete on value and cost. A new public option could offer consumers an additional plan choice, particularly in the marketplace areas served by a single insurance. A public option plan will actually, you know how the derivative goes down? It will eventually turn into single payer, which is what we want. So I am for if we have to do it that way, go ahead and put it up. All right, let's see. Wasn't reconciliation used by a previous one? No, that's not what happened. The actual Obamacare was a law passed, and sections, because Kennedy died, sections of Obamacare were done through reconciliation. But the big piece of Obamacare was done by a regular vote, which means it needed to pass cloture and it needed the 60 votes. And that is the only reason why they can't appeal the big part of Obamacare. But a lot of pieces that were done through reconciliation was actually changed. Okay. All right. What else have we got here? Michael Rudnin says MedPage today. Corn money is expanding America's wasteland. That's what I was talking about. It's called high fructose corn syrup, cheap sugar that sweetens everything. Corn subsidies are linked to oversweetening and increased demands of low nutrition foods and increased demand for unhealthy factory farmed meat, all of which are linked to increased obesity and chronic illness. Yet there exist negligible subsidies for fruits and vegetables, despite the USDA recommendation that Americans eat roughly 50% opens in a new tab or window of their diets in fruits and vegetables. The difference between that the government recommends and what they support financially display a clear dissonance. Exactly. Bree says Egberto Willies, JD is a DEI person. Yep, we know that. We know that. But I'm going to read it afterwards, sis. I need to play another video real quick. Let's see. Mike Cisak, not worth that. Lee the Bearcat says, how about saying you are what you eat? I agree with you, Lee the Bearcat. You are what you eat. You're absolutely right. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. I am also a vegan. I tried being a vegan. I think I lasted the longest was a month. It's hard to be a vegan in my house because my wife is a big meat eater. And my daughter can do vegan for a while, but she's not consistent with it. All right, let's see. Patrick says corn syrup is directly tied to type 2 diabetes. Yes. And Bridge MCP says, Egberto Willies, when I moved up here to rural GOP MAGA area, I had surgery abdominal. Know that they gave me for dinner. Know what they gave me for dinner? Chicken and biscuit. When I used to live, I would never, that would never have happened. Issue, who has heart, stomach issue? All right, guys. This other video is from this morning. I want to play this, and it has to do with EVs, electric vehicles. It's a long video, so I'm going to get it started now so we can get with the program. There's this influencer that I follow on Instagram. She's a Cuban who moved to Jamaica, right? And the most amusing thing about this is listening to a Cuban with the Latin accent move to Jamaica and picks up the English patois. It's just amazing. For me, it was amazing listening to the difference in the language and that sort of stuff. But anyway, the thing that got me is she and her husband has a lot of cabins. I think some of them on the Blue Mountain and different areas in Jamaica. All her homes are powered in these mountains by solar power. It runs the pumps. It runs everything. It runs the internet, which is via a satellite, all done on green energy. And then she talked about buying a car. And I'm thinking, my God, her business must be making a ton because you know what EVs cost here in the United States. And you know, if they're selling it in Jamaica, it's probably going to be even more when you talk about the shipping of these EVs to Jamaica, etc. And then she said something about paying $12,000 for her EV. And I said, it must be a secondhand used beat up EV. And no, it's a brand new lime green EV directly from China. And she gives a tour of the car, and the car looks like a spaceship. You know what I mean? With all the features in the cars. $12,000. Why can't we have that here? Well, of course, you know, Biden has a big tariff on EVs to try to get our industry going. Let me digress. We have a tendency to believe that because we say something or we do something, we being 4.5% of the world, that everybody else is, just following our lead, which isn't the case. Brazil gets most of its energy, it's fuel for their cars from a green source. They grow cane, they turn the cane into alcohol, and they burn the alcohol. So they have a cycle that then, that cane pulls out carbon out of the air, And after it pulls the carbon out of the air and it's fermented and turned into alcohol, and that alcohol goes into the car and it's burned, it throws the carbon dioxide back into the air. They grow more cane. The cane takes the carbon dioxide out of the air. It's a form of solar power. People say, how can that be solar power? Well, because photosynthesis depends on the sun, and photosynthesis is how the cane pulls the carbon out of the air and turns it into alcohol, ultimately with the process, and then throws it back into the car and burns. You get the cycle. It's a cycle that says we burn the alcohol, we take it back out with the cane. We burn the alcohol, we take it out with the cane. China now has become a big battery manufacturer, right? And with their alliances with several countries in Africa. Look, I'm not saying that China is some saint at all. China is just another country looking out for whom? China. America is a country looking out for whom? America. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But there's something wrong with how we do things. I interviewed Richard Wolff, and he's talking about America being in end state capitalism. You know, we know capitalism is not sustainable. The mathematics of capitalism says it's not sustainable. You won't learn that in business school, business folks. And anybody who wants to discuss that in detail, please feel free to give us a call at 713-526-5738. But we are in end state capitalism. We finally reached the extractive limits, or the exploitative limits that we have on Americans. And it's costing us a lot. You remember when folks say the reason why we should support these guys making billions and these people making millions, and I always talk about parasites not working or not doing anything. They say the reason we should support that income inequality, that wealth disparity, is because somehow these wealthy people are a cut above and create innovation. That is a lie that we've been told, that you need these excessive profits to have innovation. And I've always dispelled that lie by saying Elon Musk is the one making the money, but his engineers are the ones who are innovative. And what is it that Elon Musk wants the most? Those lead says Elon Musk is going to bring in all these engineers that will work for less. And plus his engineers over here are not millionaires, but they're the ones who create his EV. They're the ones who create his spaceship. They're the ones who create his satellites that communicate across Starlinks. They are the ones who do the work, and none of them are millionaires, right? But they're the ones who actually do the innovation. But he's the one who's worth $400 billion. And the lie we are told that, first of all, that capitalism is the efficient allocation of resources based on supply and demand. It's a lie. It's a lie. When the prices of oil got too low, what did the oil companies do? They went to Saudi Arabia and they say, hey, guys, let's create an imaginary shortage. Cut supply by 2 million barrels of oil a day so that the price would go up. This theory that we have here actually has proven a failure, and it has held us back. By having these import taxes on EVs, Biden also was trying to say, you know what? Come on, electric industry. Come on, electric industry. Come, catch up. China is cleaning your clock. Catch up. We're giving you these, we're keeping these Chinese cars out of the American market so that you can catch up. And you know what? Did they do that? No. Elon Musk is still selling a piece of crap of a truck that he claimed was indestructible, that when he did the test, the glass broke, for $80-something thousand dollars to $90,000. Relative to what they sell in China at much better quality, they sell that for under $30,000. The theory, again, as I mentioned, was that somehow creating these multimillionaires are going to create good stuff. What we've done by allowing these parasites, these billionaires, these multimillionaires to extract the money is, instead of investing that into material, instead of investing that into innovation, instead of investing that into all the areas that would bring up our products, we've simply stolen that money, your labor, your excess labor, and passed it on to the few, the corporate heads, the executives, etc. And we're paying the price for it. Now, China has, and you know what? The other thing that we do, when I talk about keeping us uninformed, that is a major, major thing why they get away with it, because we are uninformed. We don't know we don't know what Shanghai looks like, what Beijing looks like, what Xi'an looks like. These are, we have a lot of big cities. China has scores, dozens, hundreds of big cities that are high tech, bullet trains, big bridges. Infrastructure. And by the way, the last time I went to China was in the 90s. And I remember when I got into Hong Kong, got into Xi'an, and it was like, dang, I would have never thought that we don't see this in America. We don't see how these countries are moving forward in America. I have a friend that just got back from South Africa. And by the way, I'm talking BRICS countries now. Check this out. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. A friend just got back from BRICS, and she was, my God, have you ever been to Johannesburg and see what that city is like? And, again, but in our insular way of being, we centralize ourselves around all that our plutocrats tell us. And they don't tell us all the things that are slipping by us as the world goes on. And they suffice it to say, well, everybody wants to come to America. Yeah. The plutocrats and the, folks in South America, etc. Yeah, they're coming out here, but they don't tell you what's happening in BRICS. I want to ask you, how many Brazilians do you see flocking to the United States? How many South Africans do you see flocking to the United States? How many Russians, as bad as things are in Russia right now, flocking to the United States? I'm naming BRICS countries now. And Dr. Wolf, in the last interview that we did last week, actually, he told me something that kind of shocked me. And he said, remember what Biden talked about Russia and war and how the war is going to bring down Russia? He says, Egberto, I want you to remember something. You remember the Depression? I said, yes. He said, remember what got us out of the Depression? Yeah, some of the work programs that Roosevelt did were good stopgap measures. But you know what really did it? And I said, oh my God, I know it, but I didn't really tie it to Russia. He said, exactly. World War II was the catalyst that got us out of the Depression because of the massive manufacturing that had to occur. Everybody had a job, etc. And we all know that economics is determined based on the circulation of money. And man, did we have money circulated. And he said, and guess what's happening in Russia right now? And he said, has Russia caved yet? I kind of wondered how this war could last that long. And he said, come on. Russia is a country that occupies several time zones with a lot of natural resources. Why would they? They could stay in a state of war forever. They could outlast us in a state of war forever, And have you been to Moscow lately and see the style of living in Moscow lately? And then I kind of sat back and I'm like, my God, we continue to just buy what our mainstream media tells us. We have to stop it. We have to be real Americans for Americans, and start looking out for Americans. Who's looking out for Chinese? The country of China. They're doing what's right for their people. South Africa is doing what's right for its people. Brazil is doing what's right for its people. America is doing what's right for its oligarchy. It is something that is so hard to fathom. It is something that is so hard to fathom. And the reason I started with the EV is because we have Trump that comes in and he's talking about just wiping out green technology, getting free windmills. Texas produces 30-something% of its energy. This red state that loves to talk about, we are red and this and that, 30-something% of its energy is wind powered. Think about that. Oil state, the state that produces more oil than any other state. We are top notch in wind power. Wind power saved us during the last freeze. Okay. It was the gas generators that went out, and our governor lied and came up and talked, oh, the windmills froze. No. The gas lines that were not weathered froze. Did you know how much solar power we're getting? I mean, there's so much that we don't tell our people, and our mainstream media is derelict in its duty to not let our brothers and sisters in America see what other countries are doing that's putting them way ahead on the trajectory to be way ahead of us. And we continue to keep our people willfully ignorant. Why? So that we get a few billionaires and and all these folks that are protecting these billionaires and multi-millionaire, they have the false and gullible and childish belief that the reason they want to protect those guys is that someday they are going to be like those guys. We need to wake up, and we need to wake up quickly, because right now, with the election that is over and the proposals that Donald Trump is putting to fruition, what he's doing is putting us decades behind these countries. And when we talk about the other thing I learned from Dr. Richard Wolff recently, was that BRICS, its GDP far exceeds the GDP of G7. Put that in our pipes and let's smoke it, brothers and sisters. There's a lot of world around us, and we better start realizing it. And we better realize what our economic structure that enriches a few is doing to all of us, and is doing to us as a country. And you know who knows the truth? Those same plutocrats. They know the truth, and they're keeping us uninformed. Absolutely so. Hey, I want to call out Paul Fleming for this. Paul Fleming has something that he put up there that I want everybody to see. Simple. He says, first of all, I want to say Alice Dreams. She gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, my dear, beautiful Alice Dreams. You are an angel, and we love you for what you do. Thank you so kindly. And for those who accepted the membership, go ahead and send. I have to get your email addresses so that you can read the particular books online at my website. You won't read it at Substack. To read at Substack, you have to subscribe to our Substack newsletter. But I have a gate at our website as well. So if you go ahead and email me, info@politicsdoneright.com, so that you can actually get a link to read the books that Alizard Dreams made available to you. Wow. Thank you, sis. I mean, you touch the heart for supporting what we do. We work hard, and you touch your heart. We have great people in here that support us all the times. Look at the list, and you're looking at our supporters. Thank you so kindly for that. Anyway, folks, let's continue this. I want to get to the last video, and then we'll talk about both this and the other one. So let me get, the other one is only about 5 minutes. So let's get to that one real quick, and then we'll move on thereafter. Come on, video, let's get busy. One of the things I wanted to talk about is an article that I read, Fareed Zakaria's message after working class voters ditched the Democrats, good riddance. I consider that one of the most elitist statements out there. In other words, Zakaria, who I like, very intelligent guy, is telling the Democratic Party, hey, just give up on the working class. To hell with the working class. You already have the college educated. You already have most of the minorities. You can actually build a framework, because you've been trying to get the working class, and those people aren't coming to you. And let's be frank here. Whenever you hear people talk about the working class, in effect, they're talking about the white working class that the Democratic Party has pretty much lost. And he's telling the Democratic Party, just call it a day. Look, you've been winning popular majorities with minorities, college educated, and maybe a plurality of women. So why not just stick with the program and ditch the working class, which I say that is ridiculous. And Les Leopold, who wrote the article, talks a whole lot about the stuff that we talk about all of the times. The biggest mistake the Democrats have ever done was to cede the working class to Republicans, was to cede people in rural areas to Republicans. And the narrative is that these people are so damn racist. These people are so backwards, sexist, uneducated that somehow you can't really reach them. You give them the facts and they don't accept the facts and all of that. But then when Les Pold brought out some polls, you realize that no, the working class are just as progressives as those of us who are progressive in the things that they're asking for. Why the hell would you abandon the working class? That makes no sense. I've constantly said over and over and over again that what we need to do is every hospital that is closing to go into rural America, earn those votes. Obama proved one thing, and I've told you guys this message before. I knew Obama was going to win when he went into one of the most, what one would consider racist part of Pennsylvania. And when the canvasser asked, who are you voting for? The person said, we're voting for the N-word guy. His economy was over his racism. He believed that Obama, in as much as he was prejudiced against Obama, that he was going to do well by him economically. You don't give up on anybody. Racism is a tool that the Republicans have learned how to use against Democrats in with the working class. The silliest thing one can do is to give up on any demographic. If Democrats want to win, go to rural areas, go into Appalachia, go everywhere and start investing in people and stop investing or being the stooge of corporations. That is my message of the day. That was my message of the day this morning on KPFT. Anyway, folks, we have about 7 minutes left. Anybody wants to call, give me a call at 281-823-7747. 281-823-7747. Give me a call if you have something that you want our entire audience to reach. And by the way, you're reaching a very large audience because now we have the folks on Substack, on YouTube, on Twitch, on ¿dónde está el otro aquí? Twitch, Instagram, Telegram, and I'm missing one. Oh, Facebook Live, of course. But anyway, folks, give us a call. 281-823-7747. We're here waiting for your call. Esperando tu llamada. All right. Anyway, folks, let me just tell you about that last thing that I talk about. Democrats must not abandon the working class. It is easy to go ahead and say these people are... Okay, let's go to Joe. Hello, our beautiful Joe. Come on into the PDR posse. Talk to me.
I just want someone to ask me a question.
Okay, I hold 1 second as well. Let me go ahead and add this one. Okay, is this Ray? Okay,
yes,
let me tie these calls together. Okay, I think I have Joe and I think I have Ray. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Hello? Okay. All right, Joe, what did you want to say, Joe?
I just want someone to ask me a question.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question, Joe. Earlier you said let me ask you a question. You were asking a question about, or not a question, you made a statement about take you out of your, and I think you were talking about take you out of the low from seeing all this crap that is occurring. Did I understand that correct?
Yes.
Well, let me tell you how we
is the lowest. And
Mhm.
go ahead.
Well, let me tell you this, Joe. We are not going to get into despair. And every time you get a despair, you talk to us like you're talking to us right now, because we are going to work together one step at a time. You make a couple of steps forward, you drop one step backward. You make a couple of steps forward, you drop one step back.
I refuse to drop one back. Even if I do, I refuse to admit it.
I hear you, but it happens sometimes. It happens sometimes, okay? When it happens, we have to stick together.
What if
and move.
My anger is the only thing that keeps me going?
Well, you know what? Whatever it takes. But let me ask you to hold a second. Let's see what Brother Ray has to say. Ray, come on in.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I've been really burning on my mind. I need to go ahead and watch that movie, Vigilantes Inc., but I've been hearing from Mr. Greg Palast a lot, and, he's earned my confidence as a voice of someone that I feel needs to be heard a lot more. I mean, so far as to even say I might want to center my podcasting journey around what he's saying, because he finally ties it back to the civil rights struggle, to the Jim Crow 2.0 practices that they're starting to do. And people forget, in 2016, Trump had claimed that the election was rigged. In 2020, he claimed that the election was rigged. And then he tried to overtake and then he tried to overtake it with those buffoons that he pardoned when he got back in. And I just feel like he did such a good job of making the Democrats play defense to his election rigging allegations, that when him and his Republican cohorts went ahead behind the scenes and started doing all this shady stuff to make it so that these votes wouldn't count come this election cycle, nobody batted an eye, because nobody on the Democratic side wants to be accused of being a sore loser, even though they have legitimate evidence that the votes were definitely tampered with. There's even a video of Donald Trump saying, Elon Musk with those computers, those wonderful computers. That sounds a little suspect to me, but
let me tell you, I had somebody on my morning show say that. And what I made sure to tell them is that one of the things we are not going to do is, you may be, look, I think there's a good possibility that there was a lot of hanky-panky. And what I think Greg Palast has shown is that the voter suppression actually worked. My question to all of you included Joe and everybody else, right? And it goes like this. Where the hell were the Democrats doing their thing? We were just complaining. We weren't letting things happen.
They were stuck in a pleather pocketbook in the back of their pants.
There you go.
That was decorum.
There, Joe, you hit it. And not only that, we were investing in giving monies to the elitist consultants in DC and LA and these places, and the folks that are doing the work. I don't know if how much you know about Ray, but Ray works for some organizations here that get out the vote. Imagine if Ray's organization had much more money to work with, they could have brought all these counties, these marginally purple counties in Texas, right out to make Texas a more competitive state. But we didn't. And this occurred right around the country. So the question is, where were the Democrats? I got a call from a good friend last night, and he's like, Egberto, where are we? And I looked at him and he said, what about the Democrats? What are we doing? I'm like, look, at this point in time, I'm saying to hell with the Democrats. And I don't mean that as like I'm not voting Democratic. I mean, I am not waiting for leadership from the Democrats. I'm waiting for leadership from Joe and Ray and Alizarin Dreams and Patrick Magner and Bridge MCP and Michael Rudnin. You guys are the leaders. You hear me? You guys are the leaders. And what is going to happen? Bridge says start calling it what it is.
Give me a call.
Yes. Bree says, start calling it what it is. MAGA is the new KKK. You're absolutely right about that. You're absolutely right about that. But yeah, look, we're close to the end of the program.
150%.
Yes. Okay, so let me ask. Hey, Joe, I got to get out of here.
We are white women. We are here. Right. We're pissed off. Stop not talking to us. That's your 10 seconds. Voting like white women do. Obviously.
Okay, that's your 10 seconds, Joe. Let me get 10 seconds out of Ray, and then we're getting out of here. Ray.
Yeah, well, it's my mission to make that known that we're not going to let this old civil rights Jim Crow 2.0 take over again.
Thank you, my brothers and sisters, and thank you for calling. Let me tell you something. Y'all may not realize this, but the interaction with y'all, I work a lot of hours. I mean, a lot of hours. But believe it or not, all you guys give me strength because it's not a unidirectional thing. We're doing something positive to move on. So love you all and thank you all. I'll talk to you guys later. Let me close down the show. All right, guys. Look, folks, first of all, thank you, callers. Thank you, listeners. Love you all from the depths of the heart. Now, before I go, though, I got to do my ask, man. And, whoops, I don't have it up. Egberto, ¿qué es lo que te pasa? Pues tiene que tener esa cosa lista. All right, there we go. If you support the program, please go ahead. There are several ways to support the program. Today, we had great support from Alizarian Dreams. Thank you so kindly. Our beautiful Alizarian Dreams gave us support over our YouTube channel. Thank you so kindly. Today, we also need support via our newsletter. So I ask those of you that are listening to consider becoming paid subscribers of our newsletter. And you get something for it. And what do you get? You get to read all our books on Substack. All of them are there for you to read. And how do you do that? Go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. That is if you're on Substack, just go ahead and bring up our newsletter and click subscribe for a paid subscription. But you can also go to egberto.substack.com. Egberto.substack.com. Click on subscribe and become a paid subscriber. You will get access to all my books that are currently written and all my subsequent books you will have access to as well. We cannot do this without your support. Anyway, folks, thank you everybody that's been here today. Tom C says, resist. Bridge MCP says, resist. And Egberto, don't forget to get the RFK Warren tape and fix it up for us tomorrow. Sister, as soon as I get off, I'm going to go hunt it down, and I am going to do it. Your wish is my command. All right, let's see what else I've missed before I go. Okay, let's go ahead and put that newsletter in there one more time. Please subscribe, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, or go to egberto.substack.com. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.